Hey everybody, and welcome back to Jim's Garage. I stumbled across an awesome project that I just had to share with you because it lets you run macOS and Windows inside a Docker container, and that could be the perfect thing you're looking for if you just quickly want to spin something up, do some testing, and then shut it down. You don't want to worry about all the headaches that come with virtual machines, having to have a hypervisor, complex setup. A Docker container makes it easy and replicatable. So let me take you through how to set up both macOS and Windows, and hopefully that will give you a great test bed for whatever it is you're trying to learn. Speaking of learning, a quick message from this video sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant isn't about memorizing formulas or watching hour-long lectures. You're learning by doing, through interactive problems that teach you how concepts work as you solve them. That makes it way more effective than passive learning. Every lesson is built to sharpen how you approach problems, whether it's debugging code, thinking through edge cases, or understanding systems. You're not just learning facts, you're training your brain to think better. What I love is how easy it is to build a habit. Lessons are short, like 10 minutes a day, but they're also engaging. It actually becomes something you want to stick with. And because it works seamlessly on mobile, you can learn wherever you are, on your commute, between meetings, or even waiting for your coffee. To learn for free on Brilliant, go to the URL on screen in the description or scan the QR code. Brilliant's also giving my viewers 20% off their premium plan, which gives you unlimited access to their content. Now, let's get back to the video. So you can find both the repos, both by Docker, on GitHub under the names of macOS and Windows respectively. And the great thing is that pretty much the Docker Compose file, the instructions are basically the same for each. We'll have a look at them in detail in a minute in VS Code. Now, handily as well, there's a bunch of environment variables that you can add to further enhance the capabilities of these Docker containers. So you can do things like pass through hardware, you can add USB devices, you can change the number of cores, RAM, disk size, all of that stuff. Plus, with hardware pass-through, you can actually pass through things like physical disks, etc., and they'll show up in the operating system just as you would expect. Now, don't get too excited. You're not going to be able to pass through, say, a GPU and get display out, turn this into a gaming rig and things like that, or at least certainly not from my experimentation. I think that's just a limit of kind of what Docker can do. But you can use a GPU for accelerating workloads, things like Photoshop, transcodes, etc. But do bear in mind that to be accessing this, you're probably going to be going through the web browser or a VNC client or something like an RDP client, so you're not going to be getting true performance of a monitor, for example. So let's hop over now into VS Code and let's have a look at both these containers. Then we'll spin them up, we'll have a little play and a look around. So over here on my Docker host, I've created both of the compose files. The first one we'll look at is the macOS. Now we just specify the image of the container macOS. You can actually choose the version you want to use. I believe 10 to 15 is supported. So if there is a specific version you need, that's got you covered. The disk size I've just put to 50 gigs. Now I think you do need a minimum of 30 for the macOS installer to work, but 50 was fine for me. I just gave it 6 gigs and 4 cores, but you can obviously choose what you want. And I didn't enable DHCP. I'm just going to be accessing this through the IP address of the Docker host and the port, which you'll see in a moment. You could put this behind a reverse proxy as well if you wanted to, because you'll be accessing the macOS through the web browser. If you do want to use DHCP, you'll have to put this on something like a Mac VLAN, and then you'll have to specify the network for that range. I'm just using here an internal network. Now the devices here it requires are the KVM and the networking, so it needs that to be able to function, and it also needs the netadmin function, which might deter a few of you for security reasons. The ports it requires are 8006 and then 5900 on TCP and UDP, and then you've also got these volumes where you can attach to storage. Now you can add additional volumes if you want, which will show up as additional drives, and that's pretty much all you need to get this started. If we head over to the Windows one, it's a similar affair. The good news is you can actually see that most of the environment variables, pretty much most of the syntax of this compose file is the same. So once you've got one running, it shouldn't be too difficult to get the other. Critical things here are obviously we're changing the image. You can also specify which version of Windows you want to use, and it's not just the desktop experience. You can use things like Windows Server, which could be cool if you wanted to mess around with some of the server features, setting up things like your own domain, for example. Now again, just 50 gigs, 4 gigs of RAM and 4 cores. Change that to your liking. I've also again disabled DHCP, but you can put that in if you want to be able to give it its own IP address. You can then specify quite a few things here, and this will automatically create the Windows image, which is pretty awesome. You don't have to go through the installation process like you normally would with, say, an ISO installation. You can, if you want to, override that, and there is an environment variable to allow you to go through the installation process, but I really like the ease of this and the fact that once you just click go make a cup of tea, come back, and it should be ready. So specify username, your password, your region, all of that sort of stuff, and it also does accept, and this is the same with the macOS, a GPU if you want to do it. So I've said yes to the GPU, albeit I couldn't actually get that working with the iGPU. I'll do some more tinkering, but there's plenty of people who have got it working. Now again, we see the KVM and the tunnel, and this was my attempt here to pass through the GPU. Might be just because it's an iGPU and I might need to do some more tinkering. Apparently dedicated GPUs are much easier, so if you've got one, that should be able to take advantage of it. Again, we need the net admin, and we're going to be accessing this just through the web browser on 8006, albeit you can then use RDP on 3389 after it's set up for a better experience, i.e. not through the web browser. Again, the storage, this is just the default storage that it's going to use, but you can add more to it and it'll show up like additional disks. And then we've got some network configuration just for the internal Docker network. Now it is worth noting that I'm running this in a virtual machine on a hypervisor, so effectively I'm using nested virtualization, which isn't the preferred option. They do specify that the supported way to run this is to actually run this on bare metal within Docker. That might be the reason I'm getting some problems with the GPU pass-through, but again, it's probably down to my error and I'll keep toying away with that. So if you want basically the most simple and fail-safe way, do install it on bare metal, albeit as I'll demonstrate in a VM should work as well. So to get this up and running should be pretty straightforward. I'm just going to spin up this container and then we'll have a look at some of the logs as it's going through. So that's now going away and started the container. I'm going to hop into Portainer and let's check out what's happening in the logs. So over here on Portainer, we can see now that it's spinning up. It's saying that it doesn't support a certain CPU feature of my CPU. That's quite interesting. It might be a specific Intel thing on this generation of CPUs. If we have a look now within the browser, we've got a VNC session set up here. This is on port 8006, as you can see within the browser. You can see that the Mac is actually booting up. Now, I'll be the first to admit I am not a Mac expert. I've never owned a Mac, albeit I have had some experience with it. So what's going to happen here is it's going to basically boot into almost like a pre-boot or a safe mode or initialization mode. We're going to have to actually format the drive first, and then we're going to have to actually repair our installation, which then should give us a fresh installation of Sequoia on this containerized environment. I'm going to fast forward here from a bit of testing. This usually takes 5 minutes or so. It depends on how much CPU RAM you've given it, how actual fast the CPU is anyway. Plus it needs to pull down some images, etc. as well, so your internet speed is going to be a determining factor. So here we are, that's just started up now. Let me try and make that larger without breaking everything. No, it doesn't like that. So the first thing we need to do is to go to the disk utility, which is down here. We'll click continue, and then hopefully we should have the disk that we need. We've got two here, and one we want is this one here, this 53 gig one. So what we actually want to do here is we want to click erase on this one, and then we can give this a name. So I'll just call it macOS, and then we want to click erase. That'll go away and format it, and then we're on to the next bit where once this drive is formatted, we should be able to use it for the installation process. So once this is completed, that looks to have finished now, we should be able to close this down, and now we should be able to go to reinstall macOS Sequoia. So now we click continue, and then it should basically go through the automatic installation process, and it will have a few options at the other end just to personalize this. So going through the installation process, we want to now choose the drive we just created, and we should be able to click continue. And now it's going to go away and install. Don't have a heart attack, it's not going to take 2 hours and 52 minutes. I think from my estimates it was about 10 to 15 minutes, but again it's going to depend significantly on the internet speed plus the actual hardware that you've given this container. So I'm just going to let this one carry on what it's doing. We're going to hop back now into VS Code, and we'll get the other one now up and running, that Windows virtual machine. So now navigating to the Windows folder, let's start this process up as well. And it should be pretty much the same. So that's going to pull the image, that's going to start it up. And again, if we go to Portainer, we should see what's going on in there. So in Portainer, let's have a look at the containers. You'll see this Windows one now down here. you'll see what it's created. You'll see it's actually picked up the CPU, and now it should be actually going away, and it should be pulling the ISO file, the image, from the Windows servers. So that'll be downloading. Once that's downloaded, it will start the automatic installation process using the environment variables that we specified in the compose file. So now the download's just about finished. It's extracting the image now, and it should start the automatic installation process. So now it's adding the drivers. I'm guessing it's building the image now with those drivers, knowing that it's in a containerized setup. That's the beauty of this Docker image. Now it's creating the disk, installing the Intel GPU drivers. I think that might be a benefit now, because previously when I tried to add the GPU drivers or the GPUs to the existing installation I had, I don't think it did this. So maybe this time in the video I will get lucky and it will work. We'll see in a minute. So now you can see that it's actually booting. Fingers crossed. Yeah, you can see here now that it's actually starting to boot the container. In the background, we've still got the macOS. It's only got about 12 minutes left. So now this is going to go through your standard installation for Windows, but all of this is already going to be automated, which is pretty awesome. So I'm going to let this just play out, and fingers crossed, we should get to the other side in just a few minutes. So now we're on to the final part of the Windows installation. It should be going through now, just finalizing some drivers, setting up the operating system, etc., downloading some updates, and we should be presented with the desktop anytime soon. And so now we're right at the end of the installation, and we should now hop straight into the desktop, and fingers crossed this time, maybe I've got the iGPU running. On the other tab, you can also see that the macOS installation has now moved along. It's about 20 minutes to configure and install that. It's downloaded it and it's now configuring. So now hopefully the final boot for Windows 11. It's just had to restart after some updates. So here we are, we're booting straight in, just as expected, all of this being auto-configured. So that's pretty awesome. I do want to test out connecting to this using RDP, which should give us a better user experience rather than going through the browser. So now we're into the Windows desktop. Things look pretty familiar, right? As far as I can tell, this pretty much behaves exactly just like a virtual machine or even a bare metal installation. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is going to use virtualized drivers. Let's have a look quickly and see if it did pick up the GPU that I passed through to it. So in the device manager, if I look under display, what we're going to see, no, we don't actually see it. So I'm going to have to do some more poking around in there, but it does work for some users. So now if you're trying to connect to this through RDP, let's see what happens. So the username should be James and the password was Jim's Garage. This is looking promising. And it's just opened up on my other screen. Let me put that over. But now you can see here we've actually got everything up and running. So now it has picked up another display adapter, but that's the one it uses for RDP sessions. So unfortunately it hasn't picked up the iGPU. But anyway, here we go. We've pretty much got the exact experience we would expect from a virtual machine. So let's head back now over to macOS and let's just see what's happening there. So now we're again through to the configuration for this. So hopefully just a few more clicks and then we'll be through the customization process for the macOS, and we should be able to have a quick play around, see what's going on in there. And so now we're actually booting into the operating system itself, and yep, this looks pretty promising. We've got all of the usual applications that we would want. We've got things like Safari browser and Finder, and as you can tell, I'm not a Mac user. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, I don't know, I haven't used this extensively, I don't know how actually capable it will be, what problems there might be, etc. But all I want to do is basically share this with you. So hopefully you found that useful. I was really impressed when I actually found this and thought, that's a pretty cool solution. I'm sure there's some use cases out there for people. I'm sure some of you will find this useful versus the traditional route of spinning up VMs, etc. Anyway, let me know what you think about it. Let me know what ideas you've got planned for it. And also let me know how they go in the comments below. As always, if you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.